Alright, welcome back to CS170. I want to start off for week 7 just to review a couple of things and something that you guys can take some notes of and refer to again when you're doing your assignments and when you're doing your exam. It's good to have these type of examples there you can refer back to. So something that a lot of people got stuck on was the reset of the radio buttons, right? So that was one of my extra credit questions. So I'm going to go back to the exercise we used last week as an example. So here's the radio buttons with A, B, and C, right? So that's apples, bananas, and peaches that you see here, okay? And although you're not going to have to really do this for the exam to reset these values on the radio button, but how do you access those things or those values is something that you're going to have to do for your assignment or for the exam, right? So to refer to it, you have this thing called document.getElement by ID. There's another thing called getElement by name. Okay, so in this case, I'm getting it by ID because I'm looking at these things here, A, B, and C, right? So the whole group, the whole radio group name is fruit, right? To differentiate between them, I'm looking at the ID of each one, which is A, B, and C, and that's why I have A, B, and C here. So to refer to it, when something is checked, let's say I checked off on apples, right? That would be true, right? And see, I populated here. So that will be checked as true. So if I want to reset it, I want to be able to set it to be false. So I already hooked this up to the click me button here. Okay, I did the hello world, and you see I blanked it out, right? What that means is that I set the value of the check to be false. This was true before, now it's false, right? So that's what happened when I did the click me. So that's how you reset the values of the radio box, okay? So that was a little bit of a pointer that you can make a note on in terms of being able to refer to different things within your code. In this case, you're referring to a particular line of your radio button. Okay, so with that, let's continue on this. Right, so the first part of the lecture is really just walking through building out some code with you. So I'm going to kind of do that. I've kind of typed out the stuff already, but I'm going to talk you through how I did it and some of the things to pay attention to. Okay. So something for the assignment or for the exam, you might get something like this. You say, okay, can you build this screen? Okay, and what goes into that? Okay, so let me walk through it step by step, and we can go from there. Okay, so the first thing is setting the styles. Don't obsess about like the particular color or whatever. The whole idea here is with the style, you have these type of elements here. So the body, the paragraph, your button, whatever, and this will usually be in the head section, and you will put in whatever colors you want, or fonts you want, or color of the letters and stuff like that. So just make note of doing this sort of like at the higher level like we've discussed in the past. So in this case, we're setting the body, the background color to be bisque. Okay, and then you have font size of 20 pixels and stuff like that. Okay, so that's what all of that would be, and you can see here that's usually up in the head section here. Okay, so I'm using this editor here. I'm not doing the HTML file. If I was doing the HTML file, this is where you would put the style, but here I just stuck it up here. Okay, and so you can imagine if this was HTML, I would have like my head section up here, and then the down here would be the body, let's say. And notice the other thing here is we set these variables here. Okay, so this is script, and I said as in prior lecture, script basically is almost similar to saying, well, this is where I'm going to put my JavaScript code. Okay, so you have to be careful when I do stuff here within script. It's JavaScript. Like I was saying before, there's different things, sort of like putting in comments in your code, for example. Commenting out code in JavaScript is different than doing comments for HTML, let's say. All right. So here's the style. now we declare these variables. Okay, so I went in here, I declared these variables, price per gallon, right? So you see these different prices on per gallon. Set the total value to be 0, and we have something called a preferred customer. You see preferred customer here, and we default that to be no. Okay. Now the main thing is, um, you see I declared this within the script block here, and then I'm going to refer to it in code down here, which is a mixture of HTML and JavaScript. So anything, as we discussed before, anything within these on clicks, this is all JavaScript code. And the important thing to note is that I'm referring to these variables that I declared up here at the top within this script block. Okay, now really I can so yes, I can access it from wherever, right? So don't think that just because I came out of this block that I can't access these variables anymore. I declared these variables, but I can access it in my code down here. So that's one important point to note. The other thing to note is that I can declare variables wherever, right? I can declare it all over the place, but similar to how we look at things like doing indenting. I know sometimes I get a little bit sloppy with the indenting, but for the most part, you try to do like things like this to indent a little bit. You don't really need to, right? From the computer standpoint, you can do whatever you want. The computer doesn't really care, but to make things readable so people can follow along, debug it, or understand your code, you do little things like that, right? So one thing would be try to declare the variables you're going to use at the top, right? Like in this case, I put the script with these variables here. Put it all in one place. There's nothing preventing you from putting variables all over the place. You can like put a price per gallon here and put the total somewhere else down there when you end up using it. But I prefer to put stuff up here so it's in one place. I can look up where my variables are. Okay, so that's just a suggestion. The other suggestion people had talked to me about was also indentation, right? So yeah, do some formatting indenting. It gets really tricky if you don't do indenting on nested conditional. So like if else, if you do multiple if else's in there and you don't kind of line up the blocks and close them off properly, your code's not going to work properly, or it's going to work in an unexpected way. Okay, so things to note there. Okay, so here we declared the variable. All right, so let's go down here some more. All right, so now we're going to talk about creating the radio buttons. Okay, so gas station time, which is your H1, what type of gas you want, and then create this radio. Okay, and so something I want to point out here. You see over here, like I got these things to line up like this, right? Because if you notice, up here in the styles, we set up everything to be centered. Okay, and so just for kicks, let me take this line out here and take this out here and run it. You see what happened? You know, all of this lines up like this. This is fine, it works. But you know, I kind of wanted to make a little bit neater. So what I did was to and I think I did this to also emphasize the point where you can override the styling, right? So now I'm going to override the styling. Before it was set to be centered. Now I'm going to do my override by doing the P, like so, and you can see it lines up, right? So what I did was I did the text align to left, right? And I also set the margin, and I played around with it, right? I think initially I might have put it in at 80 or something like that, and see, put it over there, but I kind of wanted to get it lined up more towards the center. So that's why I did, let's say, did I do 110, 120 maybe? I think I need to go further than that. So let me do 150. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Right? It doesn't matter. It's just a style thing that I like the GUI to line up with these radio boxes like that. So, you know, something you can note. Another example of you having the style up here and then coming down here and say you don't like that. You don't want it to be centered. And then you do left align, let's say, and then you do a margin to push it over. Okay, so something you want to take a note of. So that's one thing. The other thing is, the way I set up this here um, is you have the radio button here. And actually, I screwed this up here. This should go back a little bit, like that. So what I did was I actually just created this thing here, right? And then I copy and pasted this down to here once I got this to work, right? So once I had this to work, then I just copy it down, and then I changed it. So when I copied this down, this is regular all the way down. So I changed the ID from regular to plus and super down here. The grouping is the same, right? So gas type, right? To keep all three of them together. And then I had this here, and then I just had to change up the code a little bit here. And of course, I changed this text here so it display here properly. So here's a couple of things here, right? So based on click, let's say I pick this guy here, then I set the price per gallon is $2.50, right? And you remember I declared the variable up here. So that's all good. So I set the variable. And then the other thing I wanted to do was, you see, there's 2 fixed to 2 decimal places. I wanted to make sure I put in the number, and to make it 2 fixed equals to 2. Okay, so that became the price per gallon. And then I did the box gas. Box gas is this thing here, right? I set up the box. I called it box gas dot value equals the price per gallon. So this is something you want to pay attention to. We've done it in prior examples. This is a very common way for you to do some processing and then put the results of that processing into the GUI so people can see it. So I did some calculation, let's say, and pushed it out. In this case, I selected one of these, and I want to display what I selected. So you remember this from last week. So we had the text box, so that's what you declare here. I called it box gas, and then read only. You're not supposed to use this for typing, so you have to put this read only at the end, and I initialized it to be blank. Okay, so this is something, I don't know, you want to highlight it, do whatever. This is an important concept. You want to make sure you have this down. So you do something up here. In this case, I selected a radio button, and then I set the value to be displayed out here. Okay, so highlight it, do whatever you have to do. Make sure you make note of that. And that's it, right? So I got the value, I rounded it to 2 decimal places, and then I assigned it here to be displayed out. Okay, and so let me demonstrate here. So I did this, whichever one of these I select, based on the on click, I set the value, and then I display it out here, right? So that kind of covers this top section here. Okay, so let me roll it down here. Here. Okay, now I want to say how many gallons of gas do I want? Let's see here. Yeah, so this part, oh, and by the way, I've taken this PowerPoint and uploaded already, so people want to look ahead, because I'm going to break this up into multiple videos to break down each of the examples. So I'm only going to cover this part for the first video here, but I already uploaded the whole PowerPoint up to the allow resources. Okay, so we have this part with the radio buttons for the preferred customer here, right? But I'm actually working on how many gallons do I want right now. So let me get back to that. So here's how many gallons you want. Okay, so here you can see I just typed it in, right? Because this is the HTML section, remember that. Okay, and let me just separate this out for clarity if you're trying to follow the code here. So how many gallons do I want? And then a return here. And then now, notice the difference here. So I did the text box here, but I didn't make it read-only because I want someone to type stuff in here, right? You did this last week for some people. A couple people did a great job. They did a function, which kind of went ahead to check whether something is a number or not. So that was a great job. So I'm doing this pretty quickly, so I'm not doing any validation or not, but there's any number of validations you can think about. The most fundamental one would be to check whether these things are numbers or not, and don't allow people to put in something that's not a number. Okay? But anyway, here's a text box, captures the gallons, right? Then the next line, I said preferred customer, right? So preferred customer, and then the radio button again, right? Again, to set this up, yeah, you just copy and paste the sucker. So I could have copied something from up top. The type radio is the same thing. I set the ID to be yes and no, and preferred type and preferred type. So it's the same thing here. Okay, and then based on click, I would set the preferred customer either to be yes or no. Okay, and then the text here. So that's pretty straightforward. Notice up top, I did the whole margin left thing. This one I didn't because the center looks kind of okay right now. If I wanted to, I can apply the same margin again. Okay, so that's fine. And then we have to calculate total. Okay, so I didn't have to actually do a calculate total here. Again, I can also do some validation checks to kind of force people to make sure they populate certain things. If they have, then based on me collecting preferred customer, you say I'm done answering all the questions. So if I assume I fill out the stuff from top to down, I could have set the on click to do the calculation right there, right, and not need to do the calculate total. But having the calculate total helps us to demonstrate doing a button and doing some on-click action off the button. So that's fine. So we have that. I just give you some suggestions on how it could have been done differently. So input type button. Okay, again, another example maybe you want to take a note of. This is going to definitely be something you need to know. Calc total, right? And then I set the value of the button to be calc total, and that's what you see here. Here, if the preferred customers equals to yes, here's an important thing. Number one, this is a conditional. This is the first time I've showed this to you guys. So this is conditional logic. The other thing is, this is a comparison operator. Okay, so when I do like a plus b equals to c, or well, c equals to a plus b actually, or I do a variable and I initialize it to something, you see one equal sign. So that's what they call assignment of a value to a variable. In this case, when you do a comparison, you do a double equal sign, right? And all that means is I'm comparing the left side to the right side. So I'm comparing the preferred customer. Is it yes? If I put an equals there, that means that's an assignment there. That's not a comparison. Okay, so that's something important to note. And based on that comparison, if it's equal to yes, I'm going to do a discount of 5 cents, right? And this is where you need to be careful here. Notice here I'm taking the value from box gas, which is over here, box gas 275, and I'm calculating the price per gallon equals to that at a discount of 5 cents. So I'm taking 5 cents away from that to calculate that. Else, I do price per gallon equals to the value of box gas. Okay. Now this is important because, if I kind of kept it simple, I could have just said, well, if it's preferred customer, take off 5 cents and then keep on processing. The problem is, if you click on this multiple times and then calculate, your values are going to get screwed up. So you have to make sure you have explicit calculations on this. The same thing where if you just use the one variable, I could have said like boxgas.value equals the boxgas.value minus 5, but then I've changed that value, and then when I try to go over and over again, it's going to keep on minusing from the new value, which is not going to be correct. So that's why I keep these all separate here like this, right? So this way, I've done this, I can play around here, I can change different things, and it's still going to work. Alright, so here I said prefer customer, now I flipped it to no, and everything will work. So if you don't do these type of things, when I click on these multiple times, your numbers are going to get screwed up. Okay, and after the discount, then I took the price per gallon, No, actually, yeah. So if I don't have a discount, then I say the price per gallon equals to the box has value. That means no discount. So then to calculate, all you're doing is the price per gallon times the number of gallons, right? So 30 gallons. And then again, this is a repeat from before. I take the results and I display it out into a read-only text box, right? And I set the value here, box total.value. Okay? So anyway, hopefully this is a pretty comprehensive example for what we've learned so far. And I kind of threw in this conditional logic with the if here. And make sure you make note of this double equal sign. And we're going to pick up some more in a few more videos coming. Okay? But do take a note of this. Hopefully this is a good reference for you. All right? Thank you.